Hello, me lovelies. Well, do you know what? You should see what I've just been doing. Can you hear that crickling? Do you know what? This camera is getting nominated, so I've literally had to tape it to the top of the computer because it keeps on falling down. And if I tilt my computer any more forward or my screen any more forward, it's going to be down right here. So it's annoying me. But anyway, see how far we go. I might have to cookie at some time, abandon the camera because I can see it, even though I've got it taped on, it's still slipping backwards. So anyway, just say hello to a few people. Hiya, War Baby. I haven't seen you for a while, War Babe. Mrs. Magpie, hello, me lovely. Paddy's saying that he's looking forward to the show, that he's a big fan of yours. Cookie is saying he admires you, how you've got on. Look at that. Do you see this?
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, this camera. It's already fallen down. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. Watch, it will start sinking and sinking and sinking. And it really triggers me when it does that. So, wait a minute. What have I done? Wait a minute. Evan's going so wrong cookie. I've switched me. There we are. We're back. So if I move me computer, now that makes it worse. See, it's sorry about this, people, but this will be triggering me. Might have to go off and put an Avi on because that will be distracting me all the time. I'll see it going down. It's one of my little trigger things when the camera starts doing that. And end up with my head right down at the bottom of the screen. Annoys me because you look like an idiot when here we are. Let's give it some more tape. Isn't it terrible modern technology? Tape. And now it's like here we are. See if that holds up. But I've put loads on already. They've got we'll see how we get on. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Cookie. And of course, we're going to be talking about your time with Nilsen and Dennis Nilsen. And for people that don't know, Dennis Nilsen was a serial killer from the late 70s or the 80s, wasn't it? And what we know of is he killed 12 young men. And I read a book many years ago about him called Killing for Company. And what he did, he started killing literally so these people wouldn't leave him. They wouldn't walk away from him. And he very, very strange character because from when you read the book and when you read what detectives said about him, he had no remorse whatsoever of what he did. He had not a tad of remorse. But the interesting thing is you actually met him, didn't you? And did you? What I'll do, Cookie, I'll let you talk through. Now that people know the background, you talk through how you actually met him and what the circumstances are. Wait.
Sure. So when I first went into prison for me index offence, I was on remand, and they had us on provisional cartier in Durham Prison Hospital, and I was in a single damper, and I used to get released. I used to get let out my damper on an evening for an hour to associate with everybody on the ward as part of association, and that's when I first met Desi. You know, I was with on there with Desi. I would say I was on there with him for about 5 months.
Which is a long time. But what amazed me, didn't you say you didn't know who he was until much, much later?
That's right, because a lot of his photographs that you see and on the TV and stuff and that, it doesn't really look like Desi in person. The ones that do look like Desi in person, the Desi I knew, is when you've got him. He's got his boyfriend taking some video footage of him, and he's got his top off and all that in his house. That's the Desi I know, and that's when I recognised Desi then.
Yeah,
and I only watched that Christmas time, you know.
So it's just the latest that?
Aye, yeah. You see, I never talked about how I escaped from Durham and all that. I
Yeah.
always kept that to myself, and I always said that I cut myself, you
Mm.
know. But
Now
when
I
I was in
know.
Grendon and stuff, they asked us
I
a lot of questions about me cuts on me neck and me arm and that.
But
And
what I want to do, Cookie, let's save that because I know what you're going to say for people who don't know, because that's very dramatic and
mhm,
very interesting what you have to say about what happened about these cuts, which is
mhm.
absolutely, I mean, just ask you before you reveal what happened. What did you feel like when you found out his history and you thought back to that moment?
I felt kind of disgusted, like, and very lucky,
Very lucky, very,
very
very
lucky.
lucky, my God. But um, I remember when it happened and when the news broke of him being caught, and at that time, those were the days when you didn't hear about
Mhm,
serial killers or anything like that. You just didn't hear about them. I
mhm,
think the last ones that we heard about, or with on the news all the time, were the Morse
mhm,
murders, and that was quite a while
mhm,
before when
mhm.
they happened. But it was just like
Well, there
it.
was three serial killers in Durham Hospital when I was there, and I'm sure there was another one on the ward, and I don't know his name, but I think he had, I think, and he gave me, I felt disgusted being under him. But Moira Hindley was on the ward, was in the hospital in
Yeah,
Rose West, and then were like, I would say four cells down from me, but like when it got to like to their bit, it was separated off by a door and a gate.
yeah. Because did you actually see Myra Hindley?
Oh, I got a tab off her one day on a Sunday because
Right.
she used to have to use the phone at the top of Wall Landing
Yeah,
every Sunday. So she used to hobble by on her crutches.
yeah.
You know, I mean, she just looked like an old woman to me, hobbling
Well,
by.
this is it. If people had seen Myra Hindley, I mean,
Mhm,
everyone's picture of her was the brassy, that iconic
mhm,
photograph
mhm,
where she's got that brassy blonde hair and that look in her eyes.
mhm,
And that's what people remember of. But I remember people were saying for years, they said if you actually saw her in prison, they said you'd walk right past her. You wouldn't
mhm.
know it was her. And
That's
apparently
right.
she had a very, she was supposed to be a really nice person to talk to. And
Well, I never
amazing.
really talked to her, but the listener on that Sunday, when I was in his damper on the afternoon talking about me stuff, she
Mm,
must have been hearing about because she was only a cell next door to him.
yeah,
So she must have heard what I was stressing about and that, and I needed a tab.
yeah,
And when she's come back from the phone, she offered us a tab, but she didn't like Rose West. I mean, Rose West was only up there about 3 or 4 months, and it
yeah,
was like on their little stretch of the landing, they had about 3, 4 cells, you know,
yeah.
and somewhere where they could get showered, but they didn't have a phone. But no, apparently Moira really didn't like Rose West,
Well,
which I had to
that's
leave.
it's the way they're sticking a nose up at Rose West is something, isn't it? But I read, did you ever read the book? There was a book came out. Can't remember the name of it. It was a white book, and it was about Ian Brady. It wasn't about Myra Hindley, but of course, Myra Hindley gets mentioned in it.
Mhm,
And he maintained this was only it wasn't. It took him years to say this, and I believe him. She was the one that killed Leslie Ann Down. He said she strangled her
mhm,
and played with
mhm,
the rope on the street the next day. And I firmly believe he was telling the truth when he said that. But do
mhm,
you know what? If I know, well, I know if I'd met her, I couldn't have spoken to her. I think what is she's so ingrained in the English crime world and hate and
mhm,
all that. Because then,
mhm.
I mean, back then you didn't think children. Of course, children did get killed back then, but you didn't, especially
That's
a
it.
woman. A woman,
Mhm,
you wouldn't.
mhm. It was the
But
first.
God, that's absolutely horrendous. There is absolutely, but
Mhm,
I couldn't have spoken to her. But neither could Rose West either, because she killed a child. Let's remember, she
mhm,
murdered a child. So
mhm,
couldn't talk to her either. But so what I want you to do is just so people know, because it is a fact, you have got an absolutely fascinating story. Tell us about your first meeting with Dennis Nilsen, and don't go. Try to keep out of your head what you know about him now. Your thoughts as you met him.
No, Desi was all right, man. Desi was, you see, you know, I think I was ticking all his boxes, but he was ticking all mine because, no, Desi was all right with us. He could articulate himself in a really good way, very positive. He helped me come to terms with facing my life sentence, helped calm me head down and that, and think about things rationally. No, Desi was a good friend to me throughout that time.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't. I mean, I knew he was in for murder and stuff and that, you know, but no, he was all right. I didn't judge. I wasn't judging him, wasn't I?
But when you say you knew he was in for murder, did you know what murders he was in for, or just that he was in for murder?
I just knew he was in for murder. That was it.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, he advised us about going into Grendon. He says that's where they'll help people like me, you know. And he said he knew the governor there, and that he knew him from Wormwood Scrubs, and that he writes to them, and that he would, and that's when I says to them, you know, would you write him a letter for me and recommend me to go to Grendon so I can get there? And I think he did, you know.
So what is Grendon for people that don't know?
Grendon's a therapeutic prison for violent offenders and for sex offenders. Sex offenders have their own wing. So it's where you do therapy. You do 5 days a week, you're on a group meeting for an hour and a half. Monday and a Friday are community meetings, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are small group meetings where you discuss your offending behaviour and the kinds of relationships you've been having whilst you've been offending and stuff like that. Basically, you begin to understand and be able to learn how to empathise with your victims, or everything, you know.
So it's not like a mental unit, a mental health unit, where no, it's completely different.
No, we take charge of our community. We're in charge of our community, and that, you see, one of the first things they do in Grendon is get you to start caring about your community that you live in. You know, and by that, what they've done in there was let us take charge of our community and govern it, and that was the biggest thing about Grendon, I think.
So was it easy or was it difficult?
Very, very, very difficult. The regime was good. The food was brilliant. A lot of the food was cooked on the wing, whereas not on other prisons, it's cooked in a kitchen, then put on a hot plate for 3-4 hours before it's fed to you. But it was all fresh cooked food. So that side of things, and the regime was good, but the therapy was really, really difficult, because if the therapeutic element of the community wasn't challenging enough, then the facilitators and the therapists would challenge. And I remember
seeing one, I don't know whether it was saying, it might have been, it's something's putting in my head that I'd say many years ago, I saw a thing on the television about, people who do things to children. And they were putting these men through, and literally it was like they had to go right into the depths. But these, I don't know whether it was psychologists or counsellors or that, what it is. They weren't concerned whether they felt good. They were concerned that they weren't going to offend again or would know what they'd done. And there was this old fella there. I'll never forget a Cookie. And it just said so much about how, given the right counsellor or psychiatrist, they can really get to someone. And he was doing everything right. He was writing letters. They had to write letters to the victims and all this, and this fellow was doing that, and the camera was filming him, and he was reading out his letter, and he'd look up at the camera and say, "Oh, that was difficult for me to put down." And one thing he said in it, he said, "It's not your fault. We did nothing wrong." Anyway, the fella grabbed him, the psychiatrist or the counsellor, got Cookie. He spoke to him in just a way know when someone speaks to someone and they literally take the whole personality, the whole dignity and everything, and throw it on the ground and stamp on it. And this old fellow was looking at him. And when he walked out the room, the counsellor turned around and said, no, he said, he's an old timer. He said, he's just speaking the words. He said, he's worked out what to say. And he said, I'm not falling for it. He said, he's still very much a danger if he gets out of here. But was it that kind of thing where if you tried to act that you knew, they'd pick up that you were acting and pull you on?
You have to own your behaviour. Right? You come, right? When people go into prison, right, you've obviously got your index offences.
Yeah.
Right, and they work with that. And your index offences tell them everything they need to know, really, basically, about you, you know, and the sort of relationships that you're having. They can tell how criminalised you are.
Yeah.
You know, a probation officer can sit with you for 20 minutes and see how criminalised you are.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, so you have to own that. You have to own your behaviour. And it's very, very challenging. And, you know, you have to own all your embarrassed stuff, everything that's embarrassing about you.
Yeah.
All your past bad deeds, the whole lot. You have to own it.
That's it.
If you don't, you're in denial. And then it's classed that it's a negative thing, because if you're in denial, then you're not addressing your offending behaviour.
Yeah.
And a lot of where that's there, if we don't address our offending behaviour, we're just not getting out. We have to do it.
Yeah, well, it's like a lot of things. And also, it's not just a matter of denial all the time. Sometimes people can't actually see where they're doing something. They can't see it or feel it until they get to that point. And if they ever get to that point where suddenly conscience gets up with them and they're literally on the floor, banging the floor, you know, screaming, I wish I'd never done it. I wish I'd never done it.
Well, that's right. But in Grendon, a lot of these behaviours are played out on the landings and in the groups, right? And everybody shares that. Everybody shares their stories and talks about it openly.
Yeah.
You know, so you then after 12 months for that, 18 months for that, you start relating to their behaviour, emotionally relating, and that's where it all starts. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, a real emotional resolve around your offending behaviour, why you were offending, your drug addiction, your relationships, you know, your negative relationships, real emotional resolve. When a person finds out for the first time, they're like Danny Christie, you know, I got buzzing with it all.
Yeah. But you see, they say,
but there's maintenance afterwards. You don't have to maintain your behaviour, and that's all about the circles that you're mixing in and the relationships you're choosing to have with people.
Yeah.
And
see, what you have to be careful of, and I said this about Paul Venice, he had a relapse recently. You have to be very careful that when, as I say, you're dancing with the unicorns and the pity pink clouds and the rainbows, that you've got to realize that life is going to creep up on you. Well, it's not even going to creep up on you. It's going to come at you like a express train, smash engine, say, get back down to earth. And I think that's thing when someone's on a high, that worries the hell out of me, because it's like, this isn't going to be maintained. It's going to come crashing down, and when it does come crashing down, they're not going to be prepared for it. And I think, excuse me, Cookie, I think what is they have today, you know, see, you're laid back. When everyone says about you, you're very laid back, and I think that's the attitude that gives you confidence. Well, this person has changed the lifestyle, changed the way they're thinking. But if you're all like, oh, wow, this is wonderful, this is bright, oh, the sun, oh, look, no, that's not going to last. That is not.
Well, I'm in the maintenance phase where I have to maintain.
Yeah.
You know, I have to maintain the positive rationalization. I have to look at I have to keep assessing my relationships, how I'm behaving in them relationships, how my behavior affects the people around us, all that. I have to keep thinking about that, you know, because I can't get negative. I mean, the good thing about prison is it taught me how to deal with really difficult feelings that are real depression, suicidal thoughts, all that sort of stuff, you know, I had to deal with for a long, long time. So, and it's the same sort of thing with you as well. You get loads of mad, horrible feelings that make you want to pull you down,
Yeah.
you know, and you just have to deal with them, you know.
Well,
You kind of pull them, but
Jeff asked a really good question here. Question for Cookie. How come Nilsen was allowed a pad mate when he was in for multiple maids on men? Seems very strange. It does. And he had access to bladed instruments. Oh, so
well, of
what's
course.
the answer to that?
Well, of course you can get razor blades in prison dead easy. I mean, back then it was a bit hard in Durham, you know, but you could give a snide razor back in where you took the razor blade and put the plastic back on and give it back in. And if the prison officer didn't look at it, then you copped on for your razor blade. So you get a razor blade that way. Dennis Nielsen wasn't just padded up with me. When I first went on that hospital, he was padded up with a young'un.
God. And
He's padded up with a young'un. There's loads of witnesses. Know that, and I just got to say this about the prison service.
Yeah.
I didn't want to speak bad about it, right? But the prison service, the duty of care, have neglected that in Durham for a long, long time around a lot of issues. The suicide rates in there are terrible, right?
yeah.
And them abusing and them, yeah, it's just the way they are in prison. I mean, maybe they're not getting away with it in this day and age, but back then, 1994, oh, aye.
Oh, they'll still be getting away with it. I tell you
Mhm.
now, Cookie, they'll still be getting away with it. But and just to point out to people, Dennis Nielsen was famed, which actually is scarier because he could have used anything for strangling his victims to death. So
The
he could have
kindly
just,
killer.
yeah. Oh God, that's a horrible term. No, that just went through me when you said that kind of killer. My God.
And honestly, this guy
Yeah.
had brilliant. He ticked all my boxes, right? Because he was anti-authority. He come across like he was criminalized, right? He knew the score. He had been in jail for quite a few years, doing a life sentence. He was helping me find some emotional resolve around me index offence, you know, about dealing with things and moving it forward in a positive way, right? This guy was very intelligent.
Oh yeah, this is the thing, right?
And he never come across in any sort of threat towards me,
Yeah.
you know.
But you know, when you see him, I saw the videos of him because he was into his making home videos, wasn't he? At a time when people didn't, he had a home video camera, and he was into doing it. You'll see a film of him somewhere where you show him being filmed. He comes across as he's a person who knows role, I should say, very highly educated, very arrogant in some respects. And, you know, he knows this and he knows that. He comes across the type of person you wonder why, though his partner, the one that actually left him before he started all this killing spree, he said he was never violent to him, never aggressive to him or anything, but they just parted, and you could tell he was very controlling. And was the thing. Did you get this idea that he was very much he knew it all?
Well, he had to be quite humble around me, you know, because he couldn't present himself in the kind of threat that I was used to seeing, and he was aware of that, you know. But what he did like was he liked to be the centre of attention. He liked everybody liking Desi. So everybody on the ward loved Desi. Everybody in the hospital loved Desi, you know, and he liked that. And he did assert some control over people by excluding them and stuff and that from the circle.
Yeah, manipulative, in other words.
Yes. So he definitely did show that side of it, but nothing.
So can you remember the very first day you set eyes on him? How did you introduce yourself to each other?
No, well, I just come in on the ward. I looked around on the ward and, you You know, I was very judgmental. I didn't like the people I had surrounded us. And there was this guy there with glasses on, smiling at us, and come out with us and introduced himself as Desi. And seeing how we've seen you on the news and stuff, we were expecting you to come in and all this. And started being me pal, give us heroin.
God, do you know what? These prisons are amazing, aren't they?
Give us heroin. He was the first one I smoked heroin with. Was Desi. He definitely had outside help because I smuggled heroin into the prison for him.
Yeah.
Aye. And like
So-
he knew I was obsessed with escaping. You know.
So, did you know when he was put in with a young boy and all this, or whatever, a young man?
Aye.
Did he, in these prisons, in that prison or whatever, say that they wanted to get together in a physical way? Was that possible in the prison? Could people form
In the
relationships?
damper was, aye. But in the hospital dampers, you've got like a window in your damper door with bars on.
Yeah.
You know, and you can stick a mirror out and look down the landing and stuff like that. You can very much feel the atmosphere on the landing. So anything's talked in the damper, all the other cells at either side, you can hear you and stuff and all that. But on normal location or on 43s or something, you could get up to stuff like that. Aye.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I was wondering about. So
no, I don't think he was having sex with this person or any sort of. I think they were good friends, right? In this, that have a joke and stuff and all that. And some of the jokes I didn't understand at the time.
Yeah.
You know, quite disgusting. The joke about the drains and stuff like that.
Oh, well, no, he had no remorse. And for people who don't understand what that refers to, he was actually caught because he was living in at the top of a house, wasn't he? And he was putting the remains of the bodies down the toilet, and they went into the drains.
Cooking them and
pushing
them down the toilet.
And so, but I remember the police said when they were interviewing, said not one tad of remorse. And he actually used to joke. He'd say, "Oh, I'm running out of ties," because he'd use a tie next to a rope. And he said, "Oh, I'm running out." Horrible man, horrible, totally.
I definitely believe he was ashamed of his sexuality.
Well, I know you say that, Cookie. You said that last time, but the thing is, he might have been ashamed when he was grown up because he was from a traditional Scottish family, wasn't he? And he was in the manly things like the army, and then went into the Met Police and all this. But he was actually quite proud of parading himself and his boyfriend. And his boyfriend used to wear makeup at the time. And people said he worked because he worked in the DHS, was it the DWP, DHS, whatever it's called? And they said he used to actually be making a big point that everyone would know. They said he had to pick someone that literally would make it obvious that they were gay. And they said that's the thing. And he was like pushing this fella around to say, I'm gay, you know, this way. So I never got that feeling from him that he was actually ashamed of it or he'd struggled with it. I think he was quite proud of it. Or very comfortable.
I think he probably wasn't. So certain circles, but overall, I believe he was. And that like sort of like interests me a bit because I think how was it detrimental? Was that a part of his offending behaviour that helped him offend? Why he could create this fantasy and carry out this delusional thought and live his life in a way where he could do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that the shame that he felt when he was younger helped him create the delusion around him to make him feel that he was comfortable with everything he was doing.
Yeah, because it was horrendous. I mean, and he'd keep the bodies there in the house and talk to them and dress them up and wash them and all this. But he said it, he reckoned it. I don't know whether he said this or a psychiatrist said about him. He spoke about seeing when he was only about 3, he saw his grandfather's body.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and in those days, they didn't believe in hiding death from children, which I think the vast majority, 99% of the time, I'm convinced you should get used to children to the fact that people actually die, and you should do it the old way and introduce them to the body. It just gets them used to it, and it stops death being a horrific taboo. But it didn't work like that with him. Once he touched his grandfather and felt that coldness, and he adored his grandfather, it implanted a seed in him, a terrible seed that led to what he became. And he used to actually lie down, apparently, on the ground, put white talcum powder and stuff on himself to look like a corpse, and he'd be thinking of his grandfather. And I think that was, he wanted to be with his grandfather.
I mean, it's hard to understand how someone could relate love, where love, you could only love someone that's dead.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for him, it was because the picture's been painted that his granddad, the relationship with his granddad was the only positive relationship in his life.
Yeah.
He didn't have his dad. His ma was not very loving towards him, and so were the rest of the family. All thought it was weird. But his granddad had time for him.
Yeah. He loved
so when that was, you know, I mean, so I can sort of like think, well, maybe that's how it's happened, you know?
That's what I think, and that's what the book was more or less indicating. It said that was the one instant that sort of imprinted on him something, and it went disastrously wrong, as you can see. And I think even if people hadn't walked away from him, I think he still would have killed, because he could only relate basically to someone. And this is the thing, when people do want to, they can only relate to corpses. It's because they've got full control over that corpse. That corpse can't answer back. That corpse can't do anything. Yeah, so it can't do anything. But let's get on to you got comfortable enough with him to, let's talk about the incident with the cuts, which is fascinating, absolutely fascinating and scary at the same time. So explain to people what happened there and your state of mind, what made you want to do that.
Well, for me, like, my state of mind, I was like, I totally traumatized myself for what I had, my behaviour and that. I was having a breakdown. But at the same time, I was very dangerous and criminalised, and you know, so that was the way I was then. But I was obsessed with escaping, and I knew I could have escaped to the hospital, you know. And because Desi was the only person who run us at that time who knew about the system loads and stuff and that, I talked to him about it.
Yeah.
And he turned down and says, well, Anna, easier way for you to escape. Get yourself sectioned. They'll ship you out to the outside, to the hospital outside, where there's less security, and you'll be able to escape from there. I thought, all right. He says, all you got to do is cut yourself, and with the way your head is at the minute, they'll section you. Well, I didn't believe this at all. You know, I didn't believe it at all. I thought they'll never section me if I cut myself. It'll be a waste of time. They'll just stitch us up and that'll be it. And he says, no, I'll prove it to you. He says, I've been talking about it with some of the lads on the board, and a couple of them want to get sectioned. So I says, all right. So that night, he slashed a kid right down his arm, right down here, on both arms. And the next year, he got sectioned.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think it was 3 weeks later, he cut another kid who I met in Grendon, down his arm, just down one arm, and he got sectioned. and that's all. And then I was like thinking, bloody hell. So if I cut myself, I'll be able to get sectioned. So I went away and me damn I trying to think weeks, trying to build the courage to cut myself enough to do it. I couldn't do it to myself. So I come onto the ward this one day and said to Desi, I can't do it. Will you do it for us? He says, I will, but we'll have to get padded up together.
So how did you manage that?
I can tell now the nurse's name, the full name of the nurse, everything. Right? He was a bent nurse. You know, he was wanting to bring drugs in for me and my pal at one time.
Yeah.
Well, he banged us up together, and on the first night, I got Desi to cut me arm. Right, where one of my main arteries was, and they just stitched us up, put us back in the damper. And I says, well, if not, but it was only like that big of a cut, you know. It wasn't like the ones where the lads where they done big long cuts through the arms, you know. And Desi says, no, it's just because there's been a few slashings and a few people have been sectioned, so I've just been extra precautious.
Yeah.
He says, so he says, one thing I'll guarantee it. He says, if I cut your throat.
I know, that's what's scary. That's what's bloody scary.
And that's when I turn on and says, well, cut my throat. I kill myself, I cut my throat. He says, no. He says, I'll be able to cut your throat in the replace. He says, I won't kill you.
Because what people don't, just to point out there, the reason he'd know that, he was a butcher, wasn't he? He actually trained for years as a butcher, so he knew exactly where to cut. So carry on, go on in.
So so that night, the next night after I cut my arm, I just lay on the bed. It says, right, come on, Desi, get it done for us, mate. Let's get this sorted. Because it was just a bit of graft to me. It was just a way of escaping for me. You know, I was taking a risk, but I didn't realise at that time how much of a risk I was taking.
Yeah, not at all.
You know, and I mean, and he just, boom, caught us, rung the buzzer, the nurses and that, and the officers come, opened my door, took us out, stitched us up and sectioned us that night. And then I was in St. Luke's Hospital that night, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was there for 3 months, and that's when I escaped.
So it was just to escape you did that?
So, Desi at the time was waiting for his decision on whether he was going to get natural life.
Which was guaranteed, wasn't it?
And then when I got back from the hospital, Desi was gone.
Yeah.
He had been shipped to Full Sutton or somewhere. Because you're getting his decision back.
Well, Kelsey said something here, but I'm going to discuss this. Kelsey said, trusting a man who killed at least 16, well, it was 12 people he killed, wasn't it? They know of anyway. To just cut your throat enough not to kill you, mad. What it is one, you didn't know. Am I right in saying you didn't know his history? You know he'd killed someone, but you didn't know his history until way after what happened.
Christmas gone, just this Christmas.
But also when someone's, because even though you're saying, you know, you want to get in there, for you to be that desperate, you were suffering from mental health issues, weren't you? It wasn't like you were just acting. You weren't just acting it. You were suicidal.
A breakdown.
So there was definitely there, but you just needed.
I was being abused up the screws.
Yeah.
The screws were terrorising us all the time. Constantly coming in my pad, 3 o'clock in the morning, getting us out my pad, strip searching us, slapping us about. I was always getting harassed off the DST back then, you know, because I was smoking a bit of cannabis.
But then you get heroin off him, which is telling you something, isn't it? But so that's what I'll point out. You were actually genuinely having a breakdown at that time. So you weren't thinking straight. But also, it wasn't until way after, I mean, years after, that you realised who Nilsen was, wasn't it? Now, tell us how you twigged who he was.
I think it's called Natural Bone Killers. It's on YouTube. Dennis Nilsen. I think it's the most up to date one, and I watched that, and I seen the homemade footage of Desi, and that was Desi. That just the hairstyle, the thin face. He must have been on opiates or something back then, because he was definitely a heroin addict when I met him. And it just looked like Desi. That was it. And then it started triggering in my head that I had a conversation with someone, not say his name, and he says that he told us about a big villain from Manchester who lived in Manchester from Scotland, who used to sit in Desi's pad all the time and full something with him.
Yeah.
Right? And that's when I thought, whoa, because the Desi I knew was totally criminalised. You know, so just adding them two things up, that because the Desi in the previous documentaries, he comes across as a bit not street. I mean, he was an ex-police officer. He was in the army for 11 years. He was a civil servant. He wasn't a criminal, you know. But the Desi I knew was totally criminalised.
But let's
put I knew he was having it with his filling, you know, drink coffee all day long and stuff like that. So that had a lot in common, and there was definitely and then I contacted people immediately to find out, and I know these people knew all about my story before I did.
But let's just point out to people, someone was saying he was a police officer. He was a police officer for a very, very short while. It didn't last long at all. Yeah, it wasn't long at all that he was a Met police officer. But this is so. You saw that, you know, you just said something then, and I remember it went out of my head, but you said something interesting that I was going to ask you about, but you know, when something goes out of your head, it will come back into my head. But you just said something about that documentary, and it's just flown right out of me.
Well, you see, in the documentaries, it comes across like he's a middle class man. He's educated. He's criminalized.
Hey, well, that's what I want to ask you, Cookie. What does criminalized mean? Criminalized. What does it actually mean? Because that's the first time I've heard that. So, criminal mindset.
You think in a criminal way?
Where, he killed 12 people. I think that's, if you're going to get a criminal, that's like top of the league, isn't it? Serial killer. That's what wait a minute, he's definitely a criminal.
But that's a totally different kind of criminal to me and what I'm used to, you see. So I didn't see none of that coming. I just thought he was a wifer or something.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought, he was something like on a domestic scale or something like that. You know, I didn't think he was but he did come across criminalized. That's what I'm saying. And that's what confused me.
Yeah.
With the previous documentaries is that it doesn't show that he was on heroin. That he, and you can quite clearly see that on the last one, that he's dead thin, and that looks like Desi to me on heroin. You know, so I think he definitely was criminalized, that they've not highlighted, and that's what confused me with Dennis Nilsen.
So, you know, when he was being put in these, when you got put into that place after the throat cutting, was he put in with someone else then? Was this a common
I'm not sure what happened to him after that. When I come back and asked where Desi was, I said he had been shipped out.
Because that's shocking to think that he'd be put in a cell with anyone, isn't it? My God. Because he could kill when someone was asleep. Yeah. That's what he waited for. He waited till they were asleep, and he could do it with a sleeping bag or anything. So he...
the prison officers in Durham at that time were proper sick. They really were beating up inmates left, right and centre. Proper abusing inmates left, right and centre. As simple as that. And they had no empathy for me at all. All they seen with me was an animal.
Yeah.
That it was just an animal. I was totally criminalised. You know, I hated them. They got nothing from us. So I was just an animal to them, simple as, when really I
Yeah.
was suffering tremendously. But I didn't need any sympathy or any of that. I brought it on myself.
Yeah. So when you got into, what's the name of the place again? Sorry, that you put in when you did the cutting.
St. Luke's.
No, the other place that you escaped from.
Oh, Durham Hospital. Durham
Durham
Jail
Hospital. Yeah. Now, when you did your escape, I remember you were saying that it all sounded very exciting, but it wasn't. It was very. What was that like, that experience? Because it didn't last long, did it? And it wasn't this exciting, on the run and all this business, was it?
Nah, it was tough. It was horrible. I mean, I had to get away from Middlesbrough. And more or less by the time I got back to Newcastle, I got arrested, like, more or less immediately.
Yeah.
And took straight back to prison. So it was a complete waste of time. And I
Yeah.
didn't know what I was doing escaping. I was just trying to run away from everything. Like that I was done. No fear, so I had become.
Yeah. Because think about this, people think that, oh, I'll escape, but very, very, very for you. Unless they've got a total plan set out, it never succeeds, because you'd have to go abroad, wouldn't you, to pull it off, and it's getting abroad, which isn't easy. But what I'm interested in finding out is Niels. Another interesting thing you just turned around and said was that you don't hear that he was a heroin user. This thing people have to understand as well. Now, when you see these documentaries about these serial killers, or anyone really, gangsters or anyone, you always have to bear in mind you may not be getting the full facts, or you may be getting facts that are twisted because they're only going off one version of it. They don't see what's going on behind the scenes, or what the person's like behind the scenes. Now, what was he like as a person? How would you were with him? You said you were 5 months. 5 months was it? You were with him. What was he like? What things did he like talking about, and what did you discuss?
We talked about prison, how to deal with a prison. We talked about criminal stuff. They shared each other's crimes or what we had done.
Now, when because this is a question as well. I've heard that you don't ask another inmate, do you, what they're in for or what they've done? Is that why you never actually breached the subject with them? What did you do to get in here? Because isn't there a code of conduct that you don't ask someone what they're in for? I don't know. That's what I've heard.
Normally, there is that, but only with people who you might be scared of,
Yeah.
But I didn't ask what about his crime and what he had actually done, was because I just knew he had killed someone, and that was enough for me. And he didn't feel like he was haranguing it out like that. Honestly, he just seemed like a good bloke.
Well, it was very no one twigged. It was only for those drains. No one would have ever guessed what he was getting up to. No one would have guessed. And this is the thing with a lot of these serial killers, the most, what if you want to call it, normal, friendly people going. And that's what's scary about it. But now that you think back and you think, my God, and you've seen these documentaries about him, what's the thoughts running through your head now?
It upsets us, like, that I put myself in such a vulnerable position.
But you were in a vulnerable position, weren't you? That's it. You were in mentally a very vulnerable position. So it's not that you put yourself there. You just.
I mean, the system didn't help us at all. It let us. It didn't give us a duty of care. There, put us in more danger, and it does freak us out a bit. And but no, I've survived it. I'm very
Yeah.
lucky. I'm very lucky that he didn't
Yeah.
kill him.
Because
You know, that's what I focus on. That I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
I think what it was, he didn't kill for the pleasure of it. He killed for the company. So the fact you were locked up in a cell with him, or you were having shared cell, you weren't going anywhere. So there was no need for him to kill you. It wasn't like he killed people for the kick out of it. He killed them so they wouldn't leave him alone. They wouldn't walk out and leave him.
That's right.
So you were in a position where there was no need for him to do that. And even if you did go, there was someone else coming back in, so we didn't have that pressure on him. But this is the thing about it. It's the way what you're relating about, you know, and someone said, which is shocking that he was actually put in cells with people with this crime he committed. I'm going to tell you something now, which is shocking. I'm not going to tell you who. I'd love to tell people who, because he's a horrible swine. The murders of Jamie Bulger on Bootle, from Bootle in Merseyside. Now, one of them, I won't mention his name because I don't want the algorithm going after me. The one that was found with the indecent images on his computer and all that, and he was put back in. He was sharing a cell. He was sharing a cell with someone I didn't even know was talking to me on Twitter, and then said, "Oh, I went, what? You were actually put in the same cell, yeah?" And afterwards, it made total sense because I found out about this person that was contacting me on Twitter, and I thought, my God, and to be considered safe with him, because any other prisoner would have had him, wouldn't they? They would have had him, any other prisoner. But yet they do. They put people who you wouldn't expect to be put in cells together with them.
Definitely did back then, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But there's people out there in the authorities now that my story is true. And that when it checked out properly, they knew about my story before I did.
Yeah.
I knew about it before I did. I'd been told twice. Once off Desi, right? Himself would have told them, right? And once off the kid who Desi slashed in Grendon. One of the kids who Desi slashed in Durham, who went to Grendon, then told them as well. So, and then I was still in denial about it back then. I wouldn't tell them. Because soon as that kid turned up in Grendon on my way, good kid, stuck up for me fiercely, he did. Soon as he turned up, I was getting questions off me facilitator about how I escaped and what me cuts on me neck and my arm and that. So it all adds up. You know, there's other things that, you know, I ended up on conferences and everything. I ended up with loads of people runders and that. But it just happened that way. And, you know, so it's definitely true. It's true.
Oh, God, yeah, I can believe it. I mean, the things that go on even today in
The
prison.
abuses of power in the prison system have been horrendous over the years. People have actually been beaten to death in blocks around up and down this country. It's why they've got cameras in the segregation units now. Because of all the beatings. They still abuse their powers, their restraint powers. To this day, they still abuse them.
Well, we had as well in the Borsal, during the days of the Borsals, young kids, children basically killing themselves, or sometimes it didn't quite look like they were killed. They killed themselves.
They just see them as animals.
Yeah, that's it. They were treated just as nothing.
Just an animal.
But it's there's still there'll still be abuses going on. No doubt about that. Because the thing is, as well, it's so easy for these places to cover it up because no one cares, and that's the thing.
That's right.
That's right.
Which is a shame because then it makes the perpetrator, the one who's committed the crime, it turns them into a victim.
Yeah, that's it.
And it helps them feel more victimized and all that, and them justify their bad behaviour and their offending behaviour to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
they just get abused when they come into authority figures. Well, that's what it was like. Don't know what it's like now, because I've not been for a long time.
Thankfully, you haven't been. That's the good thing about it. What's saying? Yeah, he'd like to sit before his victims as they decompose. I don't know whether he'd like to sit with them decompose. And Gavin, I think there was a certain time when they started smelling, he'd start, what sounds horrible, doesn't it? And he actually
But I think
treated,
there was some talk about, was it necrophilia?
yeah,
That he was a bit like that did he, you know, because he was, I think he was too ashamed. That was one of the things he was
yeah,
totally ashamed of admitting, but I think he sort of like half admitted it.
yeah.
So,
But
and
it's
there
a,
was people in Wormwood Scrubs on the Life-I unit, on the ones who had been in prison for that sort of thing. So it is common, you know.
oh, I know. It's when you think of it, you think, how could anyone even be attracted? I mean, the smell alone, you'd think, wouldn't that put, and cold? I mean, something that's a dead
Well,
body.
well, it's a lot of some people who kill their partners.
Yeah,
And then the thing in the heat, which is what I was told, the thing in the heat, oh, well, I'll just have sex one last time.
yeah. Oh, yeah, which is absolutely, oh, no. It's, well,
So I
there's
was
that,
told that off a facilitator from a sex offender wing in Grendon
yeah. I mean,
when I was asking about it.
it is a strange what people will get up to, very, very, very strange, and how they can get into their heads, how they do it. But, it happens. There was that fellow,
I
wasn't
mean,
it?
when you see people like that on the landings
Yeah.
who are in for crimes that you know about,
Mm.
it's just a disgusting feeling that goes on inside your stomach.
Yeah.
You're actually walking by them and you know they've slept with a dead body. You can't help judge them in a negative way.
Well,
You
of
can
course.
imagine how hard it would be for you to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Well, if when you're talking about psychiatrists and things, they sort of have to detach from it, don't they? But yeah, there was that fate. I mean, the worst one was that American one, wasn't it? And oh God, she'd been dead a couple of years, and he took her body and put it in wax and everything. I was actually living with her like she was his wife. God, he was totally off his head. He was totally gone with them. He actually
Well,
thought she was still alive.
I started what I seen Mindhunters on Netflix.
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's brilliant because it's like the beginning of criminal psychology,
Yeah,
forensic psychology, and the way they portray the serial killers is quite creepy.
it was France, wasn't it? The first stars to fight, if I'm right. Or forensics was France, wasn't it? They were the first stars. I know with the police were. The police were the first stars.
FBI in America, but Mindhunters is really, really good, and I like that because it was about the evolution of forensic psychology, and you get to see the characters, the real characters, and then you watch the interviews. That is it, Ed
Kemper.
That's
Ed
right.
Kemper, yeah.
You know, him
well,
and
he just used to love talking about what he did, didn't he?
well, they all did. They all did.
Yeah, they all love talking about it. Yeah, which is horrific. But yeah, he was particularly nasty.
That it doesn't bring up them kinds of disgusting feelings and feelings of remorse and stuff like that. It's now it's been normalised in the heat. It's terrible. It's violence. It's terrible.
See, some of them will never feel remorse. Well, some of them, Cookie, will never feel remorse because they're incapable of feeling it. They're either psychopaths or sociopaths, and they can't feel remorse or sorrow. They may say they can, and they do, but they don't. But yeah, it is a fascinating subject how they got onto it, and they know more now about psychopaths. Soon they'll be. But again, the thing about psychopaths, and this is what we've got to say, there's a hell of a lot of psychopaths around, but it's not. They're not killers, and they've got no desire to kill. They wouldn't kill anyone. The vast majority of them are just the manipulators, and they don't care if someone gets hurt in the process of it. But they're not all going out trying to because they know, don't they? Psychopaths now are more frequent, especially in big businesses. That's what makes someone ruthless. They don't care who they hurt, and that's the definition of a psychopath. So we all meet them, and they could be the nicest person going, but in there, they wouldn't give a damn.
That makes you think.
Oh
Makes
yeah,
you think.
they can try.
Aye, where the bad crimes get committed in. I mean, because I feel that a lot of socially the lower classes and the underclasses get all their police to bits, and the middle classes and that are just left alone.
Well, what
You know,
is there is a
they commit
thing.
more crime than we do. So, aye.
It's because the way the British legal system has been set up over centuries, it's all the vast majority of crimes are committed against property, and of course, landowners in the
Mhm,
past were the ones that created the laws, and so
mhm,
they're going to create laws that protect them first and foremost. So it's all land. So that's why the work classes can look as if they're being, because they've
mhm,
got more a bit, they're going to break more crimes
mhm,
because the land and ownership and burglary and stuff like that,
mhm,
where the middle classes don't have to do those
mhm,
sorts of crimes. They don't have to do it, and that's why it
mhm,
comes across as that. And for
mhm,
people who go on about, oh, it makes me laugh. This, know that Magna Carta, as if it's some
mhm,
great, wonderful, oh, freed, um, was a freeman of the state, no, or whatever they call it, land, freeman of the land, and all this rubbish. Yeah, if you were a landowner, it only, and women who go on about it, if you're a woman, it doesn't apply to you. It only applies
yeah,
when it says man, it means man as an ex.
mhm,
And they go on about, oh, it's wonderful. It wasn't. It was just another vessel to
mhm.
keep the
It was just
say
the world's first legal document.
legal document. Yeah, that's it. But they make out as if it's some kind of great
Mhm.
freedom thing. No,
I
for the
mean,
landowners, it was.
I mean, what interests me the most about Dennis Nielsen, I gotta say it, like, is that is how we got away with killing so many people,
Because he was
right?
so young.
And
Yeah.
I think largely that was because of attitudes back then towards gay men,
Yeah.
as to why he never got caught, a gay men going missing, stuff like
Yeah.
that. The police just weren't interested,
They weren't
you know.
interested.
And it was the same with like with Sutcliffe as well, with
Yeah.
working lassies, you know.
Well, Cookie, let's tell you something about Sutcliffe, right? It tells you this, right? When, and this is horrendous when you think back that this was what the police used to say. If it wasn't a sex worker that he killed, it was like an innocent victim,
Mhm.
which basically says that if they were a sex worker, they asked for it in some way.
That's right, they weren't innocent.
That was the attitude then,
Mhm,
that
mhm,
a woman could be murdered, and
mhm.
because she was a sex worker, that made somehow that she
But
was a
dehumanized
she
her.
wasn't innocent. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's it. Where if she
Wasn't human
wasn't,
no
she
more.
was innocent.
Mhm,
But as for the gay, that went on for years.
mhm,
Years. If you were part of the LGBTQI community,
mhm,
you didn't get taken seriously.
mhm,
You were just considered trash. And I remember one
mhm,
incident in Liverpool. Oh God, this was the 80s. This wasn't way back in the dark ages.
mhm,
And Merseyside Police, and there was a huge kickoff because there's a gay pub in Merseyside called Paco's Bar. It's been around for a long, 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 long time. And this was during the AIDS
mhm,
epidemic.
mhm,
And the police went in there. They used to have fun going in to rough up the gays. This was the 80s, and they went in with gloves on and were really roughly handled them.
mhm,
That was when things started changing in
mhm,
Liverpool, because the gays just turned around and said, right, if the police ever come and ask us for information on anything again, and don't forget, if you're treated as an outcast, like
mhm,
LGBTQI people are,
mhm,
the thing is, you'll know information on criminal underground and all this,
mhm,
and can help the police, which used to happen. They used to give
mhm,
the police information on different things that were happening
mhm,
in the underworld. Well, they said, we're never going to help the police.
mhm,
And that absolutely put the fear of God into the police, and they had to come out with all these apologies and everything to change
mhm,
it. But yet you were treated. I can remember going into a police station when I was younger, And at the time, like I do now, it's wear makeup, but much more in your face makeup. It was extremely loud makeup. And I can remember being treated like utter scum. Utter scum. And
I mean, for me, the concerning thing with that for me about it all is that it creates a social structure that allows people like Dennis Nilsen and
to
bad
thrive.
people to flourish, to exist. You know,
and before people think that there's no classifying people as being this way, it's something in the past. It's not. Look at the girls in Rotherham. Look at the girls in Rochdale. Oh, little tramps. Who's going to believe them? You see, it wasn't that they didn't believe them. They knew they were telling the truth. It was easier to look upon them. And I used to hear things when I was at the Merseyside Police, not off every officer. Thankfully, it was a rare occurrence. But you'd hear things and you'd think, oh, and it was usually from the old time officers. I remember one, SOCO. That's the serious crime evidence officers and all that. I had to go up to the office, used to work in the same building as them, and I'd have to go up to the office now and again. And they used to hate going up there because they were awful of their own importance. And I remember one fella, Cookie, I could go right up to his face and talk to him, and he'd just look away and blank me. And I knew why he was doing it. I knew why he was doing it, and he'd just look away. You couldn't say it because you said it, and the whole system would come back down on you and attack you. So it's not that things have got better. They're just more controlled. That's what it is.
Yeah,
they're much more controlled than what they were. But yeah, I think now it would be much harder for a Nilsen to happen. But again, at the same time, it's difficult with him to blame the police for that they weren't interested, because no one knew. There was no indication.
No, well, I think it's all about how they policed the gay community back then, and because of how they policed the gay community, it had a detrimental effect on the gay community and on society as a whole. Because look what crimes have been committed. Same with it, with how they treated sex workers.
Yeah.
You know, them parts of community were all together, really, but we were like classed as the underclass.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You know, which made things worse. I mean, homosexuality, people being ashamed of their sexuality, pushed them underground to enter which created an environment where bad things could happen, where you're vulnerable, stuff like that, where you're taken advantage of.
That's what happens, Cookie, and it's like this where I said what happens to the youth on Merseyside and other cities where they're hooked onto drugs by very powerful people to be used for their own disgusting, vile ways. Now, those children are part of an underclass, and that's their life mapped out then. And they won't get any help from the police because the police are involved in making sure it's not looked into. And yet there is definitely a discrepancies going on, unless you get a very, very brave officer that's going to stand up and say, you know, and you don't see many of them, it's going to say, no, this is what happens, this is what is going on. Because I know on Merseyside, I saw the Cookie with my own eyes, heard it. And the minute I heard it and realised what was going on, I spoke out inside the force and outside the force, which was, but you'll still hear officer now, oh, I didn't know all that. Yeah, they did. Everyone knew. They just wouldn't talk out about it. That was it. And of course, I was the lesson to learn: don't talk out about it. You couldn't go anywhere if you went to the press. If you went to, well, I made the mistake of doing that, going to the local press. I didn't know they were involved in leading some of the cases, weren't they? So it's a very brave person in that system that does speak out. Very, very brave. But anyway, getting back to Nilsen, because this is absolutely fascinating, fascinating talking about. So, if you were to meet him, what's he going on? Oh God, you know, I'm getting rid of you, Gavin. Getting rid of you, mate. You're going into timeout if you're going to ask stupid questions like that. I'm not having you coming on right. Nobody's just said, you saying LGBTQI people are snitches. Like LGBTQI are a separate
Normal
bleeding
people like everybody
species.
else.
You know, like, oh, they are.
Mm.
Like, no one that's heterosexual could ever be
They.
telling the police things. Yeah.
Mhm.
Honest to God, you have such. See, this is what I say, people, you know, and what I've learned on social media, the bigotry has never gone away. I still have grunters at me
Mhm.
over
Mm.
something I was born with. I can't even help
Ridiculous.
it. And it's just like, you think, how are they brought up? I mean, how are they dragged up? Are they
Mhm.
just sort of dragged into this world and like, there we are, get out and just forage for your knowledge?
That's how we judge it. It's how we learn how to judge each other, and then with our bad judgments,
Yeah,
we start dehumanizing each other, and then look, well, it's wrong.
yeah.
You
But
know, we should, empathy goes a long way, but it's also it's very it helps your heat.
yeah,
You
that's
know,
it. But the thing
carrying crap around in your heat.
the danger is as well when you get this, when you create subcultures, you're putting
Mhm.
yourself, your own communities in danger as well. And I'll tell you something
That's
about
right.
this, which you can't talk about. You can't, but I will talk about it. And lots of people do talk about it, right? I'm sorry. Um, there are problems with people who abuse children or take advantage of
Mhm.
children, not only in heterosexual societies, not only in Pakistani societies, it can happen in LGBTQI circles as well. And the
Aye.
thing is, you need those LGBTQI people to go to the police and say, this is happening.
Talk
This is
about it,
happening.
aye.
That's it. You've got to have us.
Instead of feeling alienated by the
Yeah.
police because they know the police don't look at them as a human being.
Yeah. That's what you've got to have. I mean, the vast majority, I'll say now, the vast majority could work with someone from the LGBTQI
Mm. Mm.
community, and they don't. It's modern. They're young now,
Aye.
and that's it's modern.
Most of
But
them. Mm.
it's the old timers, Cookie. It's the old
Mm.
timers that cause the problem.
Mm.
And the issue is that those young officers or those new officers will turn the other way and look the other way when something
Mhm.
happens because they know what's going to
Mhm.
happen. They'll be ruined. They'll be ruined.
Mhm.
You don't speak out because the whole system comes down
It's
on someone.
institutions, isn't it? It's an institutional
Yeah,
thing, and
definitely.
any institution hates change, hates it, and will resist it.
Well, the thing is, it's like this as well. I said ages ago, said it was safer. Say that someone attacked you. I don't would say that you were in a child. That's say that a child was being attacked by a MP or councillor or someone,
Mhm.
and I said the worst place you could be that would see it would be a police officer
Mhm.
because chances are they'd be ordered to not. But I saw that with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes
Mhm.
where an officer. I'll go through again. I've spoken in the past, but I'll go through it again. And this is when I really realised something was going on. I'd heard rumours, but never actually
Mhm.
seen any evidence of it
Mhm.
firsthand. And I'm sitting there, and this officer we were on nights came in, and he was red in the face. And I actually thought when he started talking, he was going to start crying. I thought, my God, what's happened here? No, I felt uncomfortable. And he
Mhm.
said to me, it's oof, again, we've caught him again. And I went, what do you mean you've caught him? He said, we've just been out. He said, and this councillor they caught with the young boy in his car. And he said, immediately when we pull him, he says, it's my nephew. But when they question the boy doesn't know anything about his uncle,
Mhm.
strange enough. And he said he has loads of loads of nephews. He said, I'm going to put this on the system now. He said, immediately, I can tell you now, he said it will be blocked by the force incident manager. No further action. Do not investigate. And that's when I saw it. So I used to say, if it's someone that's in with the chiefs of the force and it's them that are to blame, they are the ones coming
Mhm.
protecting these people, not the
Mhm.
ordinary officers. But that's the reality of it. I'd say the worst place you can be in a situation like that is for it to happen in front of a police officer, because
Mhm.
even if the police officer wants to help you, and guess what, when you go outside, it's happened to me, and you go to the what was then the IPCC, now it's the IOPC, the police watchdog, and you complain, you're blocked again. because there's a rule in there that if you work for a police force or have worked for a police force, they can block a complaint. What's the point in that? Only to make sure that cover-ups happen. And that's the reality of and that's still that rule is still here now. If you get a police officer that goes to the IOPC now and says, I've seen this criminal activity going on, and it involves children being put in danger and all this business being violated, guess what? I'll tell you, 100% the IOPC will say, well, because of this rule, the force can block you from being a complainant, so we're not going to investigate it. And that's what they do. That's what they do. So that shows you how corrupt it all is. It's all said, and you go to the Home Office, and I've still got the email from the Home Office. Don't contact us again. We're not going to reply to you. That was the whole.
Well, I've not experienced anything like that, but I believe it has gone on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of parts of society that needs investigating, but doesn't get investigated.
Yeah.
You know, us lower class, underclass, we get hammered off the busies, man. We get hammered off the police. We're investigated for everything, you know, and all the crimes, all the bad crime is happening somewhere else.
Now, what I'll say, Cookie Rice, is that it's a bit, what you say that I disagree with on one level, right? I can assure you, class doesn't make anyone less of a danger, less of a being able to abuse the vulnerable and all that. There's plenty of working class people do those things. It's not unique to, it's just that if it's done by certain members, not all members of the middle classes, not all members of the upper classes, only if they know the right people and they've got the ear of. And it also can be, don't forget, people in the media who have come from ordinary backgrounds and so very much as ordinary backgrounds.
Oh, that's right, yes.
As well. Yeah. So it depends how useful you are to the establishment. That's what keeps you protected. But there's plenty of crimes that, I mean, sometimes the police are right to go and start, questioning and all that, because there are nasty things going on.
Of course, where would we be without them?
Yeah, that's it. You need them at the same time. But you need them.
We're all lucky. We're all lucky, because I do think that our police force and stuff and that are really good in comparison to others around the world.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
and which makes our society safe to a large degree, that we can go out when it's dark and everything.
See, I think what is it, bro? I always say this about America. If you go to America, you get a wake-up call. Some states, not all of them, but some states, Texas, my God, I can tell you now, they're called law enforcers. That's what you call them. There's no messing about. They'll have you down on the ground in an arm lock and any messing about they don't. And that's the difference. Where here, it's more or less, though you do get violent police officers, you do. But it's more or less, you've got to be psychologists and all this business. And it really gets up the police noses, because as they say, we're not really meant to be mental health staff and all this. And they're having to actually deal with situations like that, where it should really be. I mean, the triage are good, I must admit. When there's someone at the triage that they can call on, that's like the mental health people who walk around with the police. And the only other ones they can rely on are the street pastors and stuff like that, which, yeah, you can guarantee I'm not a fan of pastor or anything like that, because I think it's the wrong message to be given out. But if it works with someone, it works with them, and that's the main thing.
I mean, it's got to be difficult to be a police officer dealing with that kind of stuff day in, day out, and never seeing any change, especially with offenders and stuff like that. I mean, even down to a nurse in the prison giving out methadone every single day and having to deal every single day with obnoxious prisoners, and that kind of have problems.
Well, that's issues. Well, you get. I mean, people, and let me stress, someone else was saying the other day, say that I was convinced, telling people I was a police officer. I've never said I'm a police officer. Never said I was a police officer. I was what was called a station keeper or an inquiry officer. And no, I didn't take samples of people, of the urine and all this. No, I didn't. You know, some people like to have fantasies about me, I don't know, in the bedrooms about what I did and getting it off. People who've been, you know, stalking me for 3 years online. But you know,
what taking urine tests on people in the prison?
but I wasn't. They said they wouldn't let
That's
Socko. That's Socko. This is how stupid they are. That's Socko, and they're police officers that do that. Socko does all that kind of thing. But so they were putting me on a level that I was never asked. But anyway, the thing is, I could never have been a police officer on the beat because I was too much of a coward. I was all right in a station, but when I think of it, and do you say to me, they said you can be in more danger what you're doing, because I could be in a station on my own, and many times I was, and having to deal with people coming in a room on my own. I mean, you were trained how to defend yourself. You had to do your training, your self-defense training and all that, and you had a button right next to you if it went off, and it was amazing. I tell you now, Cookie. You know, you'd see no one in the station. There'd be no one. The whole station would be empty. No police officers, no one. And a couple of times, something would kick off where someone would try to attack you. And you'd have to hit the emergency to get. And it was weird. They just magically appear out of the walls, the police officers, and you'd see the person going flying through the air. But the most dangerous, people don't realize how dangerous they can get, especially if it's at a front desk. And no, I didn't sit on the front desk. I actually had an office of my own. I used to go out to the front desk to talk to people that wanted to make. Oh, what's that?
It's somebody ringing us. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode.
Oh, so anyway, well, like no. But yet, not the front desk. Never, if you're going to think getting into your head to kick off on someone in a police station, don't do it in the front reception, because I tell you what, all that it needs is one press of a button and you could be killed outright, because there's bomb-proof shields that you don't see. They're in the desk. And we have to test them so often. And well, if you've seen them go off, but if someone comes over the desk at you and goes to attack you, you can officially, nothing could be done legally, and it would kill them outright. You can officially hit that button and they just go like there's a big massive bang. They're squashed, they're decapitated straight away. No doubt about it. And thankfully, no one's ever had to use it. But yeah, say that someone had a gun or a knife or something and you couldn't get away, you just hit that, they'd be dead. They're taking an awful risk, you know. But yeah, you see the coppers just coming out of the woodwork, and they'd be like, you'd see the person flying through the air and going on the floor. Because privacy was to protect each other, you know, that even if you hated someone, you still protected them. That's the way it was. But anyway, it looks like you're a busy man and you'll have to get off and answer your phone call to your friend by the looks of it. So any last things you want to say, Cookie?
Oh, married, I'm all good. No, I'm just going to try and do some positive content on.
Well, I'm really enjoying your camping ones. I am, because it's very relaxing watching you doing it, and it's very interesting watching you do it. And I agree with you on is it Koa noodles they're called?
Aye.
They are the best noodles going. And if you notice, they've doubled in price, the gets. They used to be 25p for one, now they're 49p. But I agree with you 100%. But what I don't agree with is you put the powder on last, don't you? After you've cooked them.
That's the best way to do it. When I put olive oil, it salts it right out.
I do it. I like the soup with it, so I can get the soup. But oh god, yeah, absolutely lovely. But when I eat meat, when I used to eat meat, doesn't it make steak taste more juicy and creamier? And it's lovely when you have with steak. So it's fascinating watch. So I'll definitely be looking out for that, and I'm sure people, but you can tell by your numbers, people are enjoying it. So if you got any more of that coming up that you've filmed,
Aye. Well, I will have soon, very soon.
great stuff. So thanks for joining us, Cookie. It was very,
No
very
bother.
enjoyable. And I'll let you get off and to your phone, you mate. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everyone.